Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to PCM22 Dragons. This is episode 38, and we're into the new season, the 2028 season. And we're going to jump straight into one of the most important pieces of business of the entire year. That being what progress was made from last year to this year in training structures. Meaning, what did we do with those individuals and that super prestige? Now, based on the numbers, from what I saw, I'm guessing we are going to have somewhere between 2 to 4 points of training structure progression for this season. Let's find out if that is accurate. Evolution of training structure. Ouch. Ecuador gains a point. The Netherlands gain a point. And Israel gains at least a point. Potentially more, but from the looks of this, it might be just 1. Now that 2 to 4 was either 1 or possibly 2 points for Israel. I'll have to look and see how much they've actually gained, but what was expected with a point for Mongolia has not happened. I thought that was a lock. Top 50 for Mongolia when they have a training structure of 3, that seemed assured to be a 4th point for them. Confirmation of Israel's single point gain. Are you kidding me? We get a guy in the top 20. We get a guy in the top 50, top 35, whatever it was for the second one. And we only pick up 1 point. Apparently, that's all you're going to get per year. Hopefully, between those two, they can pull it off again this year. That is now 3 nations that had a training structure of 2. That we have seen rise to a 3 over the past 2 years. So 3 nations now have progressed in that manner. Israel as a 3-4 will continue to get better. It's certainly not going to get worse. And with guys like Schechter and Lieberman, we could see further gains, both in popularity and training structure in the coming years. Israel, definitely a nation on the rise. Just to check in on the overall in the entire history of our 6 completed seasons, now entering 7. 10 points of progression, 3 of those in the training structure, 7 in popularity is that grand haul, that grand total. Now, of course, Kazakhstan has picked up 4 points of those alone, and is definitely the deepest nation. We're seeing more and more riders emerge, good quality riders emerge out of Kazakhstan. Israel is starting to turn into a pretty decent place to get good riders as well. As for the rest, you know, it's hit and miss. But we are making progress. It's definitely been a success so far, and you know, we're on episode 38. It's not like we've been at this a terribly long time. I'm really looking forward to the PCM23 version of this, where we're going to get well over 100 episodes. And can only imagine that when that happens, I think we can really pull this off. And also, I've got a pretty large pool when it comes to Asia that's both good and bad. It makes it harder to develop individual nations when we have such a large pool of nations themselves. When it comes to, and the official poll will not be until it's that time, until we're about to launch PCM23, so it won't be until about a month from now. So we've got some time yet, but it's definitely time to start thinking, and you're welcome to have that conversation in the comment section below. But we're looking at 3 primary options. Doing another Asia specific Dragons type series for PCM23, doing an Africa type one, which definitely has a smaller set of nations to start with, or an Americas one. And if I were to do an Americas one right off the bat, Colombia, Ecuador, Venezuela wouldn't be part of it because they're already good. US, Canada would not be a part of it because they're already good. But taking the other American countries, excluding those stronger ones, could absolutely be something we get after and do. I'd have to look individually and make sure there aren't other countries to exclude that are on the up already. But a weaker America's nations could be a thing. Or we could really go for the motherload and just go for the specific weakest nations, the 10 worst nations in the database, that sort of thing. It's hard to even get a writer in a lot of those, so we'd have to be careful on how we approach that. Maybe it would be a bottom 25 nations. That would be an interesting challenge. I've done something similar with excluding the top ranked nations in the world on the whole, and that went pretty well last year. So yeah, there are some options, I suppose, on how we approach this one for next year. But we can start that discussion in the comment section as much as you would like, but the official poll will certainly be on its way. Well, let's get started into our season with a look at the calendar and see what we already have. But with that number 1, we should have, and we'll see a note about this, I think in the next day or two, calendar-wise, we should have the potential to get some really solid invites at World Tour level after our very strong end of the season that we had. Looks like we have a couple sponsor objectives with Milano Sanremo, E3 Saxo Bank, so we should be getting into those. But we have the Vuelta San Juan. We have the Langkawi Tour, of course, as always. Tour of Oman and Algarve. It's already a decent haul. Minerva Classic is one we're getting into. Definitely some higher level races compared to what our average calendar looked like in the past. And, you know, you're looking at calendar that doesn't have glaring holes other than a couple weeks at the end of February into March, and of course the first few weeks of the season that's typically open. April and May looking a little bit lighter on the calendar, but again, it's still better races. Sponsor objectives at Ronde van Vlaanderen, Zulia Basque, Amstel Gold. Of course we should get into all of those theoretically, but that we have Cycling Tour of Turkey and Tour of Norway that we're getting into. These are a lot of the same HC races that we've been getting into for a number of years now, but then additional ones are definitely popping up, and then we're going to want to get those invites placed in those other World Tour races. One thing I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to fill out our calendar as best I can. I do think we're going to have a better return rate on our invites than last year by quite a bit. So I'm not just throwing in at everything, but I'm trying to avoid a single scenario, and that is I don't want us having 3 races at the same time. So this like Ardèche Classic, we're going to go ahead and find wherever that Ardèche Classic is and remove. And I'm just removing kind of the weakest one from the list. I've done a lot of calendar building. I don't know how many of those invites we will get. I'm guessing the World Tour ones, the ones we want, we're going to get the majority of those. I am avoiding the longer tours, though, for the most part. 1, I don't have a team built for GC, so we wouldn't perform terribly well at those. 2, as much of the racing that we are potentially adding, that would really, really overload a lot of riders. And again, there's not that many guys that would really fit that profile anyway. So some shorter races, a few, 3-4 stage ones are fine. It looks like we're headed to the Tour de France, but none of the other of the 3 Grand Tours. But that's a big addition, and that's a big push, and I really don't think we're built for that at all, or for the timing to try to squeeze that in. So we might just be bypassing our very first Grand Tour, our very first major event, and not participate in it at all. Bit of a weird one on how this has worked out, but not all bad. So we have picked up priority on invitations to all World Tour races, so meaning we're going to get a lot of yeses on the races that we ask invites to. But of course I'm mostly going for the classics. Bahrain Victorious has also earned that, and they scored well overall, but Astana was the highest rated team, and Astana's not on this list, and that's surprising. Bahrain Victorious, if I'm remembering correctly now from the top of my head, I was kind of awkwardly looking at it at the end of last season going, wait, who's going to have what invites? Which teams are prioritizing Asian riders and which ones aren't? Bahrain Victorious is the one that has nothing. No Asian riders whatsoever. Astana has Kazakhstani riders. Israel Premier Tech have Israeli riders, and they're going to get priority on the invitations to one-day races. So at least there's going to be plenty of World Tour appearances from a number of Continental Pro teams, which are going to be offering opportunities to Asian riders, or at least some of them. We certainly will, and like I said, we could be in a position to be pushing to World Tour next year, or maybe not. Good news, and very different from a year ago. Instantly, 5 races that I've asked for invites to, we've got instant yeses. So Omloop Het Nieuwsblad, Eschborn Frankfurt, Dorsdorf Vlaanderen, Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race, and Tour of Guangxi. That's going to turn the Great Ocean Road Race into our first of the year. But number of all the Continental, we still cannot get into any of the Continental Pros. Milano Torino has been turned down, but well, no, that's Continental Pro too. That's not Milano San Remo, that's Torino. Yeah, a majority of Continental Pro races that we have asked for invites to are instant no's. The World Tour ones are the ones we're getting the yeses to. So we still apparently do not have a reputation as a team that can get yeses from organizers other than by way of finishing at the top of the Continental level rankings at the end of the season. That seems to be our only path forward. I mean, at least that's the better races, but that next tier of races, we cannot seem to get an invite for the life of us. Taking another look through the calendar, really disappointing. Every single Continental Pro race that we requested an invite for, 100% failure rate. Not one was added to our calendar. That being said, I looked through the calendar, through the World Tour races, now that the calendar thinned out quite a bit, a good, 20 days less of racing than I would have had otherwise, and added one. Torino Adriatico, one stage race that filled a decent gap here in the early portion of the season that wasn't going to interfere too much with the classic season, and give us an opportunity for some guys to go out and maybe score some points. Great Ocean Road Race won't quite be first, and that's going to be our only time all season where we have 3 races on the same day. That's going to be a tricky one. Our season's going to open with the Vuelta San Juan. Our first race of the year is already off to a really good start, the Vuelta San Juan International. Lieberman has just won stage 5, and in the first 4 stages, he had a podium, he had a top 10 where there was some separation. The combination had already put him in first, and then with this stage win, he's going to be even further ahead. Locke and Tung also scoring well on this one. This is not a nothing race. I'm surprised that we have this much control over the field. Lieberman with a now 1.5-minute lead over the 3rd place rider, who only has a 1-second advantage over Tung in 4th, and Locke is comfortably entrenched in a podium spot as well. Okay, well, things are good so far. The World Tour teams that are here have very much brought some weaker guys to this. I mean, Damien Howson's the best rider around, 74. 15K to go at the Cadel Evans Great Ocean Road Race, and this is our biggest ask of the remaining time, but we just caught the breakaway, which allowed the field to sit up a little bit. Of course, that means now you have a handful of riders that are trying to attack, but there's an instant response, and 50 riders look like they're about to break off. Instead of it actually being chased, it's more of everybody wants to attack together. That's not what we were hoping to see. Al Adwani had been dropped, but had just regained contact. Dai, our now main sprinter, 0 race day condition. I think Ganai may end up being the primary. Well, no, I want Chu if possible. in between. We only have two lead out guys any longer. It's Chu, it's Oscar. It's not a good combination. This is definitely not going to be the same sprint team it was last year without Schechter here. And these guys are all looking pretty weak in this race. Not the greatest bunch. Where Allen's further forward. We'll swap the order there. Put Allen first. We're going to start with the 99. Get that big acceleration to try to help cover this gap a little bit. Because otherwise those 21 riders are going to escape entirely. Are those lapped riders? Why are they not counting for anything? I suppose they took contact with the rest of us. Thought I was going 99. He's only going 96. 9K to go. Okay, we make contact with most of the group, but 3 riders remain off the front, and that's Van Aert. That's the one you really got to worry about going off to win this thing. Here is the final hill, and we are near the top of it. Hamad takes over from Yamazaki. Yamazaki was a rookie with us last year. He has leveled up a little bit at least. And we're going to be down to our final 3 guys with 5K to go. That's a bit early for being down to your final 3. But they all have a little something left, but the red bar is mostly gone from those 2 hills. And we're now looking inside 3K, but again, can't really properly sprint just yet. Top 10 is going to be a big ask for this race as Chu takes over with 1.5. And Dai getting the lead out he needed. Yeah, 900 meters. That much red bar. Go for it. Bit of a slow start over the hill. He'll get maybe a top 10. Is that a top 10? There's about 10 riders ahead of us. He's going to have to overtake the back end of this line to squeeze into the top 10, and he's going to come up just short. 11th. He used up his red bar right as he crossed the line, so timing on that was appropriate. Lead out, not very good. A couple days and couple sprint stages later, the Vuelta San Juan has finished up with no change to the order. So we get a 1-2-4 finish. Hamad also down in 13th. Wow, that's a huge result to start the season. Maxime Taraskin has 4 career victories. The first 3 of those were national championships, 2 individual time trials, and a road race championship, though not winning either of those last year. He was 3rd in the time trial the year before, so he's definitely the best time trialist around over the last few years. Was Taraskin hurt last year during the national championships, or he just kind of, I think he might have just finished, 2nd when he was favored to win, and then didn't win the road race because it wasn't his kind of profile last year. But 4 career victories. The 4th just occurred, and it couldn't have come at a better time. The Tour of Algarve is one of our 2 major sponsor objectives of the year. We're about to do the last stage of that where he leads the overall. Final 23K. Now, we actually have a pretty healthy lead for Taraskin. He's like 40 seconds to the good. We've had 2 key stages so far. One was punchy, and he was in a 1-2 finish and won it, where they had about half a minute over all the chasers. And then we had a time trial. It's a short one, but he finished in the top 5. And that combination was enough that he ended up, between the 2, ended up with a pretty healthy advantage. And he's, got some teammates that are decently well placed around him as well. Good thing it was not Lieberman leading the day here. Brandon No was involved in that crash. Lieberman, will he get up? That's all I care about. He's out of contention for the day, but for a second I thought he was hesitating. Alright, he is back on his feet, and we'll have 5 riders for the final 15K. I also need to start upping the effort. Reddy has been working at the front most of the day, but at an easy enough pace that it really didn't do him much good. The whole team has a really good race day condition. Reddy is a bit used up from his efforts, but we'll get Yamamoto to gel up as we're going to take over here shortly after this descent The breakaway's been caught, so that just recently happened, so there's no breakaway anymore. They did have a fairly healthy lead, and through 4 KOM points, they kept attacking. So as we were pulling time back, they'd attack and then open it up again to compete for that KOM. And here, little false flat that I didn't even see coming, but we're okay. Nobody's getting off the front from this one. And now it's 8K to go. So it is time to set things up. We, of course, are going to follow Kasim Reddy, but I suppose he's going to follow Yamamoto. Yeah, we're going to have Yamamoto go first, Kasim Reddy go second. We'll have Islamov and Locke, who's now 15th overall. Lieberman was 26th. And we will gel up for Reddy. Yamamoto actually blocked by Reddy there for a moment, but where is the teammates coming through? And Taraskin, the last one, finding space. But we are well positioned for this punchy one, and with the kind of gap we have, there's no reason to think that Taraskin will not hang on to his overall, but you never know, so that's why we take it seriously. Yamamoto going full gas, but without red bar, so only so fast, but we'll use him to wait for a team to try to come up beside us and push, or the base of that final climb, which is now just 3.8K away. So gel and gel. 3K to go, and we're starting to ramp up. My whole team looking really, really strong today. This is going to be a pace that others cannot match. Ready, done. On to Islamov. 1.4K. $1K. Islamov. Those guys that were kind of pushing, attacking are now done. Lock. And Taraskin. Taraskin, what can he do? He's going to come to the front, but can he hang on to it? He's got this right-hand corner that's a really bad position. It's going to end up knocking him out of the top 3, I think. Yep. Is that Shockman? No, it's Vlasov for the win. Hindley to Barry. Taraskin gets 4th, but that is definitely enough to hang on to the overall. So that is a victory for us in a race that was one of our 2 major objectives of the year, and the objective to win. So we have succeeded in one of our 2 major objectives of the year already. Confirmation of the overall victory, 42 seconds ahead of Steimel. Oliveira. Kevin Rivera is up there. Taminaga gets a nice 8th place there. Riding with Bora Hansgrohe. Taminaga is a 77-78, just 23 years of age. This was absolutely one of my target guys, but he is close to being maxed out. So that's just about as good as he's going to get. Ultimately why I never signed him, but pretty good. Vlasov takes 9th overall. There's Hershey to Barry. Locke gets 12th. I made a nice boost to our otherwise dormant sponsor confidence, which was right where it had started the year, not up or down, as this was our first objective, and like I said, one of just 2 major ones, and that already put us into a pretty decent state. You do okay in that second one, those national championships, that's an easy 100% evaluation for the year. So far, we are the Continental's rankings top team. We have not been involved in anything World Tour besides Cadel Evans, and so we haven't really amassed any points yet. But in the Super Prestige, for the moment, we are #1 overall, despite just being Continental Pro. Now, of course, that will surely change, but we could be on our way to another top 10 performance this season the way things are going. And that's without Schechter, who really did bring in a pretty big chunk of our points last season. In terms of victories, we've got 4 on the season already. And of course, those 2 primary races amounting for those. I really didn't think it would be the case. We've been a sprint team certainly last season, and we've gotten weaker in that department. I did not think that GC would suddenly be taking over, but it really is starting to emerge. The quantity of good climbers that I have is really good. My only issue is I don't have the individual or 2 individual elite climbers to really make us competitive against those World Tour guys. But when it comes to the HC races, we can expect to get a lot of strong performances out of Lieberman and Alpazov and Locke. this season. So we will get a decent amount of points out of those, and that seems to be the new direction that the team is heading in. Right now, Lieberman is 8th in the classifications, and Terraskin is 3rd. So both of them in the top 10 in the Super Prestige rankings, and you can see a lot of guys have already scored some amount of points this season. I'm going to do a very, very quick once-over of how Continental Pro is looking. The main thing I want you to keep an eye on, unless you want to glance at what's going on with the rankings, is those top few riders and see how we compare to others. Quebec, very much like us, but they drop off after their top 2 guys. Leclerc, a little bit better than us. Bridge Lane, similar to us, but less depth, but same. 3 5.5-star guys, and that did not. Oh, but look at that. That is Astana with a new name, Team Zaman Bank. That is Astana, and they have a new sponsor this year. Okay, but that was the first team out. 3 5.5 stars does not guarantee you World Tour ranking. Lutsenko's still on the team, by the way. Gidic, Brunsky are the top Asian riders, and they're very much way down that order. So this is a team that's not going to be performing. So it's not a terrible thing that they have lost their World Tour ranking. Spark New Zealand, similar to us, a little bit less depth, and that's kind of a typical thing. We're seeing a lot of single 5.5-star guys, and then a couple 2 to 3 5-stars, and we have, I think, 5 5-stars and our 1 5.5-star guy. So getting to a second won't necessarily get us there. It looks like we're going to need minimum 3 5.5-star guys to have a chance at making the World Tour rankings. Whoa, we've got a 6-star, a 21-year-old Luxembourg 6-star puncher. What's their drop off? A 5.5, but then it drops to 4.5. So are they really hurting that bad? Lopez, though, degrading, is going to get worse as the season goes on. And maybe they'll lose one of them with contract up. Well, Schmitz is signed up for another year. They're going to hang on to him. They're going to be tough to keep out of World Tour unless they can't re-sign any of these guys and have that major drop-off. Elevate, Electro. There's another one that drops off quick. Again, with that 2 5.5-star guys is definitely not enough to make World Tour. You can see how we are certainly up there on the rosters. Bahrain Victorious, very balanced, but no elite riders, hence their drop off. I think they came in just behind us in the rankings. I believe they were the next ones down. We came in about 5th. I think they were about 6th. But here is that just off that bubble cutoff point. So that's going to be our target. Get to 3 5.5-star guys, and we may or may not be in. One team did not get in from that this year. Everybody else, it would have been enough. So depending on how good your 5.5 stars, that could do it. But a 23, 28, 25 for them, and all with expiring contracts at a lower budget, there's actually a chance that they're not going to retain those guys, and they're going to be outgoing, and this could be a very different team next year. And therefore for us, yeah, getting to that point, getting to 3 5.5 stars might do it. But that seems to be the minimum expectation. I mean, looking at that web, that is definitely a much better team than what we have. That is going to do it for this episode, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.